There is not a single woman who has said, yes, I was trafficked by Epstein to Trump. There's one who says Trump walked into a house with Epstein and allegedly fondled her upon meeting her. Okay, that's the best they have so far. And they're waiting for some sort of smoking gun in these materials. So I think Trump did his 180 because he had to. He knew he was going to lose.
That's all they have? What do you mean that's all they have? She's downplaying it. All they have is Trump walking into Epstein's house or a house with Epstein and groping a girl, allegedly, which follows another 20 allegations of Trump doing the same thing, but in different contexts, but the same abuse of power dynamics in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s.
In today's video, Adam Mockler absolutely unleashes on Megyn Kelly on the Adam Mockler Show. Adam Mockler steps in, absolutely unloading on Megyn Kelly for running interference for predators, softening language around child exploitation, and bending over backwards to sanitize anything that might splash back onto Trump. Because this isn't nuance, it's not legal hair splitting, it's blatant minimization of abuse, and survivors deserve better than that. So let's dive in and watch how Adam Mockler shuts down Megyn Kelly on the Adam Mockler Show.
All right, Megyn Kelly sounds increasingly unhinged every single time she talks about the Epstein files and tries to run defense for Trump. I mean, we know that Trump sounds unhinged every single time he's asked about the files. He legitimately has snapped at like 3 women reporters over the past week, calling them piggy or terrible human beings. But Megyn Kelly is the only person who sounds almost as unhinged every single time she tries to respond to the files. I want to show you some clips, and then I want to show you a clip of this 14-year-old that was sent to me. It went viral because she says, hey, Megyn Kelly, listen up. I wasn't even supposed to talk about this topic because it's an adult topic. She says,
hey, Megyn Kelly, I'm Eloise and I'm 14 years old. I wasn't even going to say anything because the topic is an adult one. My mom even made a video about it yesterday because we didn't feel it was an appropriate topic for a child to speak about. But after hearing you go on camera and explain that Epstein wasn't into 8-year-olds, just the barely legal type like 15, I realized you might need an actual reality check from a literal child.
Okay. Let's lay the groundwork to see how we got here. First of all, there is a new viral clip of Megyn Kelly from this week where she's essentially trying to say that there's not a single woman who said she was trafficked to Trump. There's only one woman who was groped by Trump. Like, just listen to the distinction she tries to draw.
There is not a single woman who has said, yes, I was trafficked by Epstein to Trump. There's one who says Trump walked into a house with Epstein and allegedly fondled her upon meeting her. Okay, that's the best they have so far. And they're waiting for some sort of smoking gun in these materials. So I think Trump did his 180 because he had to. He knew he was going to lose.
That's all they have? What do you mean that's all they have? She's downplaying it. All they have is Trump walking into Epstein's house or a house with Epstein and groping a girl, allegedly, which follows another 20 allegations of Trump doing the same thing, but in different contexts, but the same abuse of power dynamics in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. He's on camera saying he grabs women because they let stars do it, and then he doubled down behind in a deposition a few years later. Over and over, Trump has shown that he's more than willing to abuse these power dynamics with Epstein, without Epstein. He sent letters to Epstein at Epstein's peak sex trafficking moment in the early 2000s. So the way she words this, like this isn't a smoking gun, this is all they have. This is pretty damn bad, Megyn Kelly. Now, let's watch the clip that this 14-year-old is referring to, where Megyn Kelly is then trying to further draw a distinction between, like, pedophilia and liking 16-year-olds, which she calls the barely legal type, but 16 isn't barely legal. Just listen to how insane this defense is.
As for Epstein, I've said this before, but just as a reminder, I do know somebody very, very close to this case who is in a position to know virtually everything. Not everything, but virtually everything. And this person has told me from the start, years and years ago, that Jeffrey Epstein, in this person's view, was not a pedophile. This is this person's view, who was there for a lot of this, but that he was into the barely legal type. Like he liked 15-year-old girls.
Wait, no. 15 is not what barely legal means. Either way, this is just disgusting.
What Adam is pushing back on here is something we've seen many times in high-profile scandals. When allegations involve influential figures, certain commentators immediately start trying to reframe the entire conversation. And Megyn Kelly leaning into distinctions about age is part of a broader tactic often used in media, shifting focus away from the seriousness of claims and toward technicalities that change how audiences emotionally respond. Here's the problem. Conversations about misconduct involving minors shouldn't hinge on drawing fine lines between ages. Child development experts agree that anyone under 18 is still in a vulnerable stage, socially, mentally, and emotionally. The American Psychological Association has repeatedly highlighted how power dynamics between adults and minors create an inherent imbalance, regardless of whether the minor is 13 or 16. That's the core issue Adam is driving at, the power, not the number. And historically, when influential people were tied to serious allegations, whether in sports, entertainment, or institutions, defenders often tried to soften the narrative by reframing ages, intentions, or context. It happened during the US gymnastics abuse scandal, during major university investigations, and in multiple church-related cases. Commentators would focus on rhetorical differences instead of acknowledging the underlying harm or the voices of those affected. The pattern is well documented, and that's why people react so strongly to seeing it again. Adam's frustration also makes sense when you look at the broader political climate. When media figures who normally take hardline stances suddenly adopt a let's not generalize, let's be nuanced position, especially when the subject involves someone politically aligned with them, it raises questions about consistency. Viewers can tell when nuance is genuine versus when it's strategically deployed. Adam's point is simple. Discussions involving minors and abuse should center on the people affected and the systems that failed them, not on rhetorical distinctions that distract from the core issue of accountability.
And I realize this is disgusting. I'm definitely not, not trying to make an excuse for this. I'm just giving you facts.
These aren't facts.
That he wasn't into like 8-year-olds, but he liked the very young teen types that could pass for even younger than they were, but would look legal to a passerby. And that is what I believed, and that was what I reliably was told for many years. And it wasn't until we heard from Pam Bondi that they had tens of thousands of videos of alleged, forgive me, they used to call it kiddie porn, now they call it child sexual abuse material, on his computer, that for the first time I thought, oh, no, he was an actual pedophile. I mean, only a pedophile gets off on young children abuse videos. She's never clarified it. I don't know whether it's true. I have to be honest. I don't really trust Pam Bondi's word on the Epstein matters anymore. Yeah, so I don't know what's true about him.
The girl whose parents originally came to Epstein and kind of blew the whole thing open, she was 14 years old. She was a young girl at that time. Epstein did reportedly have child porn, and Epstein absolutely was a pedophile. I don't know what this weird distinction is, but Megyn Kelly is only making this distinction now that Donald Trump is so deeply embedded in this that you can't remove it from his political reign. Let's listen to this 14.
But after hearing you go on camera and explain that Epstein wasn't into 8-year-olds, just the barely legal type like 15, I realized you might need an actual reality check from a literal child. So let me help you out. Megyn, people in my grade are turning 15 right now. Some of us still have baby faces. Some of us still have braces. Some of us still call our parents when we're scared at night. Some of us still look like middle schoolers because we basically are. And the fact that a grown woman needs a teenager to explain that is honestly terrifying. Here's the part you seem confused about. Under federal law, anyone under 18 is a child. No asterisk. No, but they hit puberty. No, older kids don't count. Anyone under 18 is a child. You said you were just giving facts, but here's the real fact. What you said wasn't factual. It was minimizing. It was making abuse sound like a technicality. And Megyn, here's the part you really need to hear. If a 14-year-old has to get on the internet and explain to a grown adult with national platform that children are children and there's no age where abuse suddenly becomes less bad, then the problem isn't confusion, it's corruption. Because kids my age aren't supposed to be the ones correcting you. We're not supposed to be the moral compass in a room full of adults who should have known better. But here we are. If my voice makes you uncomfortable, good, it should. Because the minute adults start defending predators by debating the age of a child, you're not protecting the truth. You're protecting the predator.
What makes Adam Mockler's reaction hit so hard is that he's pointing out something that keeps getting lost when commentators like Megyn Kelly start dancing around definitions. Under every relevant legal standard, Epstein wasn't someone with unusual preferences. He was a serial offender whose victims were children, full stop. There's no category of barely legal when the law is crystal clear. Anyone under 18 is legally a minor, and exploiting them is child sexual abuse. Federal statutes like 18 U.S. Code Section 2251 and Section 1591 treat 14, 15, and 16-year-olds exactly the same, because traffickers regularly target those ages precisely because they can be coached, manipulated, and made to look older. And the thing is, the public record confirms it. Epstein's 2008 plea deal involved a victim who was 14 years old. Court filings from the Southern District of New York described an entire network built around recruiting school-age girls. Multiple survivors, including Virginia Giuffre, have emphasized that the entire system relied on teenagers who still looked unmistakably like kids. So Megyn Kelly attempting to carve out a difference between pedophile and 15-year-olds isn't just misleading, it mimics the exact arguments predators use to rationalize their abuse. And then there's the part Adam doesn't even need to say out loud. Powerful people have historically downplayed trafficking when it threatens their political allies. We saw similar patterns in the Larry Nassar investigation, the Boy Scouts cover-ups, even the Catholic Church scandals, institutions protecting reputations instead of victims. So when Megyn Kelly suddenly gets very invested in massaging language right when Trump's name appears in new disclosures, that context matters. What Adam is reacting to isn't just spin, it's the normalization of abuse under the guise of clarification. And that's exactly the kind of rhetoric that lets men like Epstein get away with it for decades.
That went viral on TikTok, and Megyn Kelly is clearly trying to preemptively lay the groundwork for a potential release that looks so bad for Trump that she can use this type of argument. I think she was running this argument to see how it would land, and it didn't land very well. Who cares about the distinction between any age below 18, number one? Number two, the power dynamics at play mean that Jeffrey Epstein was grooming girls out of the Mar-a-Lago spa, not women, not young women, but legitimately girls who were 12, 13, 14, out of Donald Trump's spa, and then ruining their youth. Even Virginia Giuffre killed herself in April, rest in peace, and she was traumatized by what happened. She talked about this extensively. And Megyn Kelly is sitting here trying to downplay the experience of these survivors, dozens of them who stood outside the Capitol. I think the MAGA fracture is only going to accelerate from here. I mean, these clips occurred before Marjorie Taylor Greene resigned because she got bullied by MAGA for wanting to release the Epstein files. Let's finish this clip, actually.
But we have yet to see anybody come forward and say, I was I was under 10. I was under 14 when I first came within his purview. Look, you can say that's a distinction without a difference.
No, it's not.
I think there is a difference. Yeah. There's a difference between a 15-year-old and a 5-year-old. You know, it's just whatever.
Reminder, Megyn Kelly is someone who never sees a lick of nuance in anything else. She thinks that all Democrats are jihadist communists, no nuance in any of this. But all of a sudden, she thinks, there is a big difference between sexually assaulting an 8-year-old and a 14-year-old. And we all need to be aware of this different. What are we talking about here? It's the same power dynamic abuses. It's equally as disgusting. I don't know. She tries to act like one is less or more disgusting than the other when that is just not true. I'm going to leave it there. This is disgusting.
What Adam is calling out here is something we've seen over and over. Whenever powerful men get tied to abuse scandals, suddenly people who normally claim to be tough on crime start splitting hairs about the ages of victims. And that shift isn't accidental. It's part of a long documented pattern where defenders try to soften public reaction by reframing the crimes as something less severe. And Megyn Kelly leaning into that framing is straight out of the PR playbook used by institutions that covered for predators for decades. Legally, the distinction she keeps grasping at doesn't exist. Federal trafficking laws under 18 U.S.C. section 1591 don't treat a 15-year-old as closer to adulthood. The law considers anyone under 18 a minor who cannot consent, and prosecutors have repeatedly confirmed that Epstein's victim pool included girls as young as 12, long before any lawsuits surfaced. Even the 2008 plea agreement, the one that was shockingly lenient, involved a 14-year-old child. That alone destroys this narrative that the victims were somehow older teens. And beyond the law, the power dynamics Adam is pointing to are backed by years of research. Child predators deliberately target kids in that early teen range because they're vulnerable, impressionable, and easier to manipulate. The FBI's own behavioral analysis reports say predators often prefer 13, 15-year-olds because they're old enough to be coerced but still mentally children. So Megyn Kelly pretending there's some meaningful difference is not nuance, it's deflection. And let's be real, this only gets pushed when the political cost is high. We saw the same distancing and excuse-making when the Boy Scout scandal broke, when Larry Nassar was exposed, and when the Catholic Church tried to protect its hierarchy. The formula is always the same: minimize, muddy, and moralize just enough to calm the base. That's why Adam's reaction lands. It's not about partisanship, it's about refusing to let powerful people hide behind semantics while survivor stories get watered down to protect someone's political brand. Pause. Are you getting tired of getting half the story from biased news sources? One outlet says one thing and another says the complete opposite. How are you supposed to know what's actually true? That's where ground news comes in. It lets you compare how different media outlets, left, right, and center, are covering the same story. So you can see the full picture instead of just the echo chamber. And here's the best part. Click the link in the description and get 40% off the Vantage tier, which gives you even deeper insights into media bias and political trends. Stay informed, think for yourself, and check out ground news in the description down below.